I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, October the 21st, brought to you in part by Noromycin by Norbrook. Noromycin 300 LA is an economical 300 milligram oxytetracycline that delivers the same amount of antibiotic as the 200 milligram options in a lower dose. For more information, go to norbrook.com. Higher, higher, higher. And if you guys can't get excited about this rally that we're having in the cattle market right now, you need to check your pulse. But some of my friends that watch this on a regular basis have been giving me a hard time since I've been so bullish the last week or two here, and they're kind of comparing me to some of those old farm broadcasters that used to have everybody's attention on the radio. So your higher, higher, higher goes out to Evan Slack from the Denver area, an old farm broadcaster, and Eddie Collins from Red Oak, Iowa, who would say that the road runners were coming out looking for cattle, and you better watch out, get your children out of the driveway, because they'd be sliding in there looking for cattle because they're so short bought. But I tell you what, this market has really turned straight up like a torpedo, and it's fats, feeders, and calves all higher. Even your futures market has been trying to keep pace and phasing off everything that's affecting it on a normal basis. But we've seen good gains on your futures market all week, and we saw our October spot live cattle futures close at 149.77 on Thursday. I think we could even have a weighted average in your 5-area feeding region that's just over 150. If you can believe it. And I told you I was a doubter, and I didn't think that the market would ever be 150, and that's your market. The futures is not your market. The top price you see on fats is not your market. Your weighted average in your 5-area feeding region is the market. If we trade a little bit more Thursday evening and some on Friday at the levels that we've seen in the northern plains this week, we will see a 150 and a little bit better weighted average in your 5-area feeding region, and I cannot wait to report that next week if we do end up getting that, but we are getting very close. But northern plains, I told you on the last visit, the guys were dug in at 152 and just being darn right stubborn, not backing down. I mean, your Packers came to 150, didn't even shrug them. 151 was traded a little bit there midweek, and that didn't bother them a bit. They wanted to 152. Guess what? They got to 152. Thank goodness for those negotiated cash sellers in the northern plains. We would have never gotten to these levels if we didn't have those stubborn guys, those old school guys hanging in there tough and haggling every week on those fat cattle. But that 152 traded most of the cattle on Thursday. That's $4 higher than the bulk of sales last week in the northern plains, guys. Southern plains not bad at all either. We had seen a little bit of 147 trade on Wednesday, but on Thursday the rest of the guys were dug in at 148, and they got the 148. That's $3 higher in the southern plains. Nothing to sneeze at. I mean, this is a market where if we could pick up $1 or $2 in a month's time on an up market, that's good. But to pick up $3 and $4, that's just fantastic, and it's all due to supply and demand. Stupid. I mean, that's what causes everything, and that's your economic rule. But we are realizing that, and thank goodness we still had some negotiated sellers to realize that, because we would never realize it if we just had everybody trading on a formula. What would your base price be? What would make your base price go up? You know, I guess it never would. I've always said it's damn hard to gain $1 when you're selling off last week's market all the time and you have no say in the negotiations. So thank goodness for you guys that are still negotiating on your fat cattle. Congratulations on the win. Next week is going to be higher yet. I've already heard guys said next week I'm dug in at 155. And most of the guys are still selling green cattle. Your Packers are wanting the high grade and high quality grading cattle, the choice and prime cattle. but they're buying cattle that guys could keep for a little bit longer. You wouldn't know that by your average dressed steer carcass weights, which climbed again as we saw the information come in Thursday. But it's unbelievable how we've got these monster carcasses and they're not grading. And the only thing it tells me is guys are cheating a little bit on their rations, and you can't blame them. As high as corn is, that they're finding something cheaper to put in there that is not making these cattle grade as well as the corn does. But you have to find a place to cut back on your input costs somewhere. But it's a very exciting time to be reporting the market. It's an exciting time to be in this industry, and I'm sure glad to be in here telling it to you. But now I'm going to give you, the real world here. Enjoy it, because it's the third Friday again, and we've got another cattle on feed report coming out. Why we have to undergo this stress every week. It's so frustrating. Why can't they give us the information as it comes to them? Why do we have to put it behind a curtain, have a big drum roll, and then at 2 o'clock Central, after the board closes for the week, reveal those numbers, and then have our butts puckered all weekend waiting to see what happens on Monday when the board opens? Why do we have to do that to ourselves? I don't understand it. I don't know any other industry that does it as much. You know, when the grain reports come out, they come out while the board's still open. And then you can you go ahead and take your licks right there, and you don't have to wait all weekend to see what's going on. But we got a cattle on feed report. It's one we've been looking forward to, because we feel like that we're going to have lighter numbers of cattle on feed, and we're going to have lighter placements. That's what we've been kind of eyeballing here all summer. The hell of it is, this cattle on feed report, the average of the analyst guess, gives October 1st inventories at 99.1. So yes, slightly under a year ago. They've got placements for September pegged at 96.2. That makes me nervous. The 96.2, and you say, well, we got so many fewer cattle around. Yes, but if cattle are not in the feedlot, where are they? You know, any grass that's out there, guys got cows on. So basically, any cattle that are not mother cows or breeding bulls that aren't in a feedlot are sucking the cows. They're on their mothers. There's no place to have cattle grazing out. Now, we've seen a few grass yearlings come back, but I mean, they've grubbed that place plumb out. You're not seeing people buying these light calves to turn out in background on grass. They're putting them in a lot somewhere. We saw a lot of light calves come to town early in September. And so where did those go? They went into a lot somewhere. What does that make them? Placements. I know that our placements already are on the lighter side of the scales, and are going to be in there a long time, which is why we've got really tight numbers of market ready cattle. The cattle have been that got put in there as yearlings or at a feeder weight, and have been in there long enough to have a chance at grading choice. But it scares me. 96.2 scares me a little bit. I'm afraid that it's going to be closer to 100%. And if it's closer to 100%, the industry is going to, or not necessarily the industry, but your Chicago is going to view that as a bearish report. And then we'll have to undergo some juking and jiving around next week until we can convince them again that we're in very tight supplies. You know, they've got a short memory, don't really understand how the market goes, don't really understand supplies. And so I still think fats are going to be higher next week, no matter what. The guys that have the fat cattle, the guys that want to buy them, know the situation. But it's just the board. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope placements come in at 90% and everything's locked up the limit. And your inventories are down, closer to 95. I mean, that would be fantastic. But I'm just scared that it's not. I don't remember so many cattle coming in early in the fall in September and selling. Oklahoma City's receipts never really wavered, and they're expecting a much lighter run this fall, but it hasn't been lighter yet because they're all coming early, and it's happening everywhere else too, because there's really no place that's not undergoing the drought. And I told you yesterday that 82% of the United States is in some sort of drought. So that the drought could cause us to have a little stumbling block in this rally, but I wouldn't expect it to last long. But all eyes are going to be on the Cattle on Feed report Friday here at 2 o'clock Central. September marketings, they've got them posted very aggressively. The average of the analyst guess is 103.9. We expect that to come in very close, but dang those placements. Let's talk about your board on Thursday. October live cattle futures up 42 cents at 149.77. December, you think that your cattle feeders aren't liking that, selling cattle at 152, and they got that nice basis there to help them out on top of that at 149.77. December up 32 cents at 151.67. Your back months on live cattle down 32 cents to up 60 cents, so a little bit of mixed bag there. Feeder cattle for October were up 35 cents at 175.57. It wants to go up right in the face of higher corn, but it's wondering why these cash index levels aren't coming along. These cost of gains are just so astronomically high that the guys are real hesitant about giving more for these feeder cattle in your sales, and that in this October contract, the spot contract's going to have to meet up with your CME cash feeder cattle index here, at the end of the month. And it's just dragging because, whenever we've got cost of gains averaging in the high 130s, some people in the South looking at 150. I was talking about your cattle. If you had some wheat to turn out on, they would charge you $1 a pound on the gain. Everything's just higher. Feed's high, feed's short, and that October feeder cattle contract is going to have to back in to your cash feeder cattle index, I'm afraid, here at the end of the month. November down 52 cents at 177.55. Your back months were all down, from down 70 to down 102. Your corn, like I said, was higher. I mean, we've got problems in the Ukraine. Every day it's something else. Most of it has to do with that crooked ass Putin, and you can't trust the thing that comes out of his mouth, and why would you even want to hear it? Also, we still got this railroad deal hanging over our heads. It's still a possibility that we could have a railroad strike. If you can't send grain down the Mississippi River and you can't send it on the railroad, I don't think we have enough truck hoppers to haul it all off, guys. I really don't. But corn up 5 3/4 cents at 6.84 on the close Thursday in regular trading. Beans up 19 cents at 139 or 13.91.5. Excuse me. Fat cattle trade, man, it was so active and we had so much participation and healthy negotiations on Thursday. We're finally going to get some information out of Colorado, right? No, Colorado's confidential. Got to have at least 3 packers participating in the business there, and we don't, and probably never will again. Iowa, 5,900 head confirmed. We're getting a lot of this late afternoon business, and these packers are dragging their feet on this up market, putting that information into mandatory price reporting. We knew we had a lot of trade on Wednesday, yet we didn't really see it confirmed because they waited till after 2 o'clock to turn that in. They're supposed to turn that stuff in immediately, and at 10 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're supposed to get all the purchase information that they've had since the last time they reported, and they're dragging their feet on there because they don't want to report the higher prices. And I'm not for damn sure that we need mandatory price reporting if we can't get the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act, because it helps the packer, the mandatory price reporting. It makes their sweetheart deals. So, why would we want to help them out with that? But Iowa, 5,900 head, 25,300 for the week. We hadn't seen anything like that. It's all done after hours. Live sales in Iowa, 148.5 to 153. Yes, 148.5 to 153. Dress sales 232 to 236. Nebraska, 19,300 head confirmed on Thursday, 26,300 for the week. Live sales 149 to 152. Dress sales 235 to 236.50. Kansas, about 9,300 head, just about 1,000 more than that for the week. I did see that negotiated grid, which there's not a lot of negotiation to it, but a lot of cattle were turned in as negotiated grid, 20,200. That was to coax guys to go ahead and sell their cattle, and they still have a chance to receive a few premiums on those kickers if they've got those high grading cattle, which most of your people in Kansas do not, but it's still out there. But 147 to 148 mostly in Kansas. Texas, 6,700 head, 7,400 head for the week. Live sales in Texas, 147 to mostly 148. Box beef cutout values mixed after being a lot higher earlier in the week. So we've established the bottom seasonally for choice cuts, and now they're going to be headed north. But choice cuts 253.62 on Thursday afternoon. That's up 23 cents. Selects 222.08, down 11 cents. Choice select spread is now over $31.50, a record for this time of year, and we know why, because these cattle are not grading as high up in the choice grade and as many primes as what these packers are really wanting, and so we're starting to see a premium for the better carcasses, which we should see that. Slaughter 509,000 up through the first 4 days of this week. That's just 2,000 less than last week's big week. And we thought that the packers were going to slow chain speeds down. I don't think they can slow the chain speeds down because they've promised a lot of product out there. We don't get to see that much. What I just gave you on your box beef cutouts, that's just slim spot trade. Most of the trading's done far out front. They've promised a lot of product out front and a lot of that high quality product that they've been used to having ever since the pandemic. They're going to have to scramble to find it, guys. But that 509,000 is 25,000 more than the same week a year ago. Talked about our actual slaughter information for the week ending October the 8th. Had your average dressed steer carcass weight at 920 pounds, 3 pounds bigger than the last report. How these cattle are so big and grading so poorly. What else is going on? You guys that are in the area, consider going to the Kansas Cattlemen's Association's 24th annual convention right there in Wichita, Kansas. It's going to be November 18th and 19th. They've got some good education on there. Right there in Wichita, Kansas, they've got some great speakers coming in there. A guy I used to work with at USDA, Charlie Potts, is going to be there talking about the Cattle Contract Library Pilot Program. I know you guys are interested in that. Go to the Kansas Cattlemen's Association convention and listen to him. We've got Patrick Robinette's going to be there. Steve Stratford, who don't like Steve Stratford, who doesn't like to listen to him talk, he's going to be there giving a market update. So if you guys can, put that on your calendar, November 18th and 19th in Wichita, Kansas. Talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DV auction. Late in the day on Thursday, sitting at 172.72, down 29 cents. And I realize that everything's gangbusters, but these 7-day moving averages, just depending on what day of the week they switch, sometimes they come down a little bit if they had a big special or something like that, especially in the northern plains the same day of the week before. But 172.72 based on an 800-pound steer. That's only 5 cents per hundredweight from what your CME cash feeder cattle index is right as we get here late in the month. Talk about your big sales on Thursday. Winter livestock in Pratt, Kansas, 2,600 head. Feeders were not well tested. It was mostly a calf special, and they haven't been having their calf specials on a different day. They've been having them on Thursday, so mostly calves. Steer calves $7 to $10 higher. Heifer calves $3 to $8 higher. did have an outstanding quote on some thinner fleshed yearling feeder steers there in Pratt, Kansas. 90 head, 813 pound steers bring 191. Wow. How about Farmers and Ranchers Livestock in Salina, Kansas? 1,600 head for them. Feeders were $2 to $6 higher. Calves were not really tested very well in Salina because that was not one of their special calf sales. But stick-out sale in Salina was very impressive on some yearling feeder steers. 63 head, 915 pound steers bring 181 on Thursday. Very impressive. Your Zoetis stick-out sale of the day is Dickinson, North Dakota. Dickinson, East Barn, Stockman's Livestock Exchange. Those guys do a great job. They're way up there. They get prices similar to what happens more in the central part of the Midwest. Very impressive market, well tested in several weight groups. Look at this automated marker report out of Dickinson, North Dakota. 582 head of full weight steers, average 463 on Thursday with a weighted average price of $225.69. That's $11 higher than last week. 909 head of 5 weight steers, average 557 with a weighted average price of $206.27. That's $8 higher. 436 head of 6 weight steers, average 637 at $195.97. That's $6.50 higher. Heifers, 316 head of 5 weight heifer calves, average 532 with a weighted average price of $186.15, and that was a little bit cheaper. And a lot of you guys are going to be kicking yourself for not buying those replacement quality calves right now because the heifers are not as attractive to those farmer feeders that are buying those calves and going to feed them for a long time and make them really high quality. Talk about some individual quotes around the circuit. Paris, Kentucky stockyards. Now of late we've seen our buyers kind of shying away from our eastern markets because those cattle don't have as much hair and they're going to be fed during a really cold part of the year, especially in the northern plains, so they back off of them a little bit this time of year. They stayed with them longer than usual, but still selling them very impressive. And you look at Paris stockyards, 79 head, 714 pound steers bring $181.40 with $6 freight at least. How about Belle Fourche Livestock Market in Belle Fourche, South Dakota? 87 head, 614 pound steers bring $212.75. My goodness. But the best quote that I saw on Thursday in your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Mitchell Livestock Marketing in Mitchell, South Dakota. 61 head, 1,080 pound near beer steers bring $174.60. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.